Hi, and welcome to the End Times Guy podcast. My name is Lee. Great to have you with me this morning. It's just about 8 in the morning, and I'm just north of Seattle on the I 5. It is a very bad time to be on the I 5. Well, there's never a good time to be on the I 5, but 8 in the morning in the Seattle area is pretty much a large parking lot. I feel so sorry for the dear citizens of Seattle, Washington, who have to literally live with this mess. And they've done, you know, wonderful things with the infrastructure to try and get it flowing faster, but a major artery flowing through a very large city, of course, it's going to um, just have the lion's share of traffic. And if you get into Seattle, it can be a pretty bizarre place to drive in. I've had my adventures. If you follow your GPS, it'll take you on some really wonderful adventures. I've been downtown Seattle with a load of steel, stuck on a 45-degree grade. I don't know what that is, like 15% or 16% grade. And it was so steep that once I stopped, my truck didn't have the power, even in low gear, to get moving again. And people had their cell phones out taking video, and it was really great. Really enjoyed myself there. I had to back down to a cross street and get rolling, and then I had 3 streets to cross, and I had to time the lights just right and lay on the air horn as people were trying to cross the street to get through back up to. And then when I got up to the top of the hill there, oh my goodness, I was doing loop-de-loos and all kinds of things trying to find my way out of the downtown area. It was a nightmare. One of my worst experiences as a truck driver, I promise you. Um, well, before I get into the news on Planned Parenthood and their Death Star, it really seems like Darth Vader is the CEO of Planned Parenthood. They recently kicked out, what's her name? I can't remember her name, but she was only the CEO for a short period of time, and she was the first actual medical practitioner to head Planned Parenthood. And poor fool, she came in with the idea they were helping women. Of course, she's not going to last as CEO, duh, because Planned Parenthood isn't about helping women. And if you're a medical practitioner whose goal and chief aim is to help women, you're in the wrong place. You see, the whole business model of Planned Parenthood is to make money. And abortions are what pay the bills. Abortions are the bottom line. Abortions are where the money is. And that's the business of Planned Parenthood. Kill a baby, make some money. Kill more babies, make more money. Kill lots and lots and lots of babies. Well, you get the picture. But I think it's important to go back to the very foundation of Planned Parenthood, just so you get a scope of who they really are and what they really stand for. Their founder was a woman named Margaret Sanger, who was a deeply racist eugenicist. Now, first of all, eugenicist means that this came from Nietzsche, a philosophy that you could get a better evolved human being. Yes, this does tie into evolution. It was only evolution that reduced the value of human life to where something as horrible as this could be considered. And Nietzsche believed that we could advance evolution by breeding better genetics together to create a better human. And he visualized a Superman. If you could just get the best of the gene pool together and breed them together, evolution would thrive, and you would eventually arrive at a Superman, the next step in evolution. He called it the Übermensch, or the Superman. And this is what Hitler latched onto with his Aryan dream, that evolution would be advanced if the Aryans were brought together, their good genetics brought together in a pool, And there were all kinds of Nazi breeding programs to this end. And of course, the Aryan dream is a 6 foot tall, blonde haired, blue eyed boy wonder. Now, Hitler was short with brown hair and brown eyes, but hey, let's not let genetics hold us back. Now, Margaret Sanger bought into all of this, the eugenics and the Superman mindset, and her vision was to improve the gene pool in North America. And that couldn't be accomplished with the likes of the blacks. And I'm not racist at all. In fact, in the 90s, there was nothing I wanted more than to be black. They have rhythm, they're cool, they're hip. And I'm a white guy. My voice is genetically whiny and nasally. And man, I would have just given anything to be a black guy. But Margaret Sanger was a real racist, a genuine racist who would go to KKK rallies, that's the Ku Klux Klan, those weirdos that wore the pointy hats and went out and formed lynch mobs, and really saw black skin as the equivalent of an inferior species. I mean, we're talking deep, dark madness here. And Margaret Sanger was an unabashed supporter who would go to these KKK rallies and preach sermons to all these old white people with white pointy hats. And she would call the blacks reckless breeders, first of all. Reckless breeders. They're just having so many babies. They're reckless breeders. They're always having babies. She didn't like blacks having babies. You know what she called them? Human weeds. In Margaret Sanger's mind, a black person was nothing but a weed. You go out into the yard, and you pluck it out of the ground and throw it away, and now your yard is all better. That's what she saw black people as. What is monster a strong enough word to describe her? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. A human made in the image of God, having the knowledge of good and evil, has sunk to such a level of depravity in darkness that she could look at another human being as a weed, something to be plucked out and thrown away. This is the founder of Planned Parenthood. She had an answer to get rid of the weeds. She was the Roundup of her generation. And guess where she started her Planned Parenthood clinics? In predominantly black neighborhoods. This is racial targeting. Planned Parenthood was founded on racism and racial targeting. And her clinics were set up in black neighborhoods, offering abortions to black women and preaching to them, convincing them that their lives would be ruined if they had a baby. But Margaret Sanger was there to the rescue. And her clinics made money while getting rid of the weeds. This is her goal. This is her dream. And to this very day, Planned Parenthood clinics are primarily established in low-income neighborhoods. But, you know, Planned Parenthood has suffered some real setbacks. Ever since Trump was elected, Trump has done immeasurable good for Christian rights, for the rights of the unborn, for Israel. God has raised Trump up for this time and set Trump where he is. And it's driving the left absolutely insane. And you know what? You know them by their fruits. If the bolstering of Israel and the rights of Christians and the rights of the unborn are driving the left insane, the left is bearing the fruits of Satan. You will know them by their fruits. I don't consider the left a political movement at all anymore. It's owned and ruled by the hand of Satan. They truly are representing Satan in this world. And there is pushback, not only in the US, not only in Canada, but also in France, in Holland, and in other places. The honest working class who read their Bibles and believe in freedom and fairness are beginning to get sick and tired of being pushed around. And I don't honestly know what the future holds, if it's too little too late. I'm not God. I don't see the future as he does. But I'm really delighted to see the pushback that, the left from the 60s has been really infiltrating every form of society. The music industry, the movie industry, the colleges and universities, the primary schools, the high schools, middle schools, the government programs, government counseling. Everywhere you turn, the left is in charge. And look what the left has brought us with all of their scheming and skullduggery. Look what they've brought us. Boys think they're girls and girls think they're boys. They don't value themselves. Suicide rates are up. Violent crime is up. People's treatment of one another is way down. This is where they're leading us. And people are starting to wake up and take notice that society is moving into a very dark place. And fortunately, a few have the clarity to say enough is enough. Now, Missouri is a unique state. It remains a bastion of abortion. And think about this. This is the news about Planned Parenthood's new Death Star. They formed a shell company 3 years ago and began to sneakily, think about this. What is going on? They began to sneakily build an 18,000 square foot mega center for abortion. 3 years ago, letting no one know what was going on, all done in the dark, in secret, out of the sight of those who might object to it. They created the Planned Parenthood Death Star in Missouri. They started 3 years ago. Now, they must have had some guarantee from the governor that this wasn't going to be defunded or shut down or protested. There's something very, very fishy going on here. I'd like to have a conversation with the governor and know exactly what promises were made to Planned Parenthood to give them the confidence to build this mega facility, which is going to open its doors next month and become the premier baby murdering super center in America. It raises all kinds of questions. Why did Planned Parenthood feel that they needed to do this under the table and behind our backs where we wouldn't see and know what was going on? No other company, well, I can't say that, but no honest company, and certainly no not-for-profit group goes around sneakily establishing facilities. Every other not-for-profit announces the facility and does fundraisers for it, if it's truly a not-for-profit. But this is where Planned Parenthood is at. They've created in Missouri this new Death Star. And they are scheming and conspiring and plotting the murder of children. But I'll tell you what, children are not the only victims of abortion. They're not. The mother is also a victim. Christchurch, New Zealand did a long-term 20-year study on the effects of abortion and found that, man, it's harmful to women. 25% of all women who receive an abortion will go on in that 20 years to suffer with suicide, self-harm, drug and alcohol abuse, depression and anxiety, and that's, the 25% that knows deep down that they've done something wrong. Now, another percent of that group is evil. They're so hardened that they just don't care. They're not suffering because their heart is like stone. I don't know what percentage of the group that would be, but I'll guarantee you it's more than 25% are so hard and cold that their heart will simply not feel the guilt. And then another percentage, I would say more than 15%, are not at a cognitive level to realize that they've done something wrong. You see, the 25% who are really suffering, that's guilt. Guilt causes that. And they realize they're carrying a burden of guilt. 15% or more of the population, their cognitive levels are so low that they just simply don't realize what's going on. Their mind doesn't operate at that level. And you're hearing this and going, wait a minute, 15%? Yes, the Army gave me that statistic. The US military has found that 15% of the population has an IQ below the threshold. I believe it's 83 IQ points. Anything below that threshold, they operate at such a low cognitive level that they are of no benefit. They're more of a burden to the military than a benefit. They will never be productive. They will always screw things up simply because they do not operate at a high enough cognitive level. And that translates equally into abortion. It's clear across humanity. So 15% of women or more simply don't have the cognitive function to really worry about what it is they've done. So it goes to show that the majority of women experience guilt. Some choose to ignore it, others don't understand it, but it's there. There really are two victims in every abortion. And many women that I know in this 25%, you see the haunt in their eyes. You see that it still weighs heavily on their soul many, many years later. And in many cases, this abortion was forced on them by parents or a boyfriend. It wasn't even their choice. So Planned Parenthood isn't about protecting women, and they're not about women's rights. They're the Walmart of murdering babies. It's about the bottom line. It's about getting numbers through the door. They shamelessly advertise to Girl Guides. They shamelessly reach into schools, public schools, to access the children there. Their target audience is 9, 10, 11-year-old girls. And they're filling their heads with lies and deceptions, telling them, you have the right to choose. And they own the narrative. They capture these innocent young girls and fill their heads with lies and propaganda so that these deceived girls will in time get pregnant and consider abortion as a viable option. They have a right to choose. That's what they've been told. And then they go into the Planned Parenthood Death Star and they give over their $1,000. Planned Parenthood eats $300 in costs to the medical staff and pockets the profit. That girl will go home and lay there in bed that night and begin to regret the thing that she has done. She was told it was a choice and a right, but in her heart, in the quiet of her room, she realizes that there is no longer a life inside of her. The life that was inside of her is gone. And any animal can understand the loss. It doesn't take a human being in all their glorious complexity. A simple animal can understand the loss. So I am not going to just sit here moaning and crying about Planned Parenthood's Death Star in Missouri. I believe in and know the God of heaven who sits upon his throne, who tells the oceans where to stop and the sun when to rise. All the elements of the universe submit to his authority. And whatsoever I ask in Jesus' name, it will be given to me. So I'm going to begin praying now against this abortion Death Star in Missouri and see what the hand of God can do. Planned Parenthood is a wicked, wicked enterprise. And I'm going to raise my voice to heaven and see what God will do with this new Planned Parenthood Death Star. And I invite you to join me. Let's join hands, join hearts, and ask God to intercede, to judge this facility, and to demonstrate his power and his authority in our time. Thank you for listening. God bless you and strengthen you, give you eyes to see, clothe you in robes of righteousness, and cause you by his great power to walk before him in righteousness.